So, addressing some of the topical issues in the news, one of which is the revelations that were made by the House of Representative member Honorable Abdulsamad Dasuki, a member of the House of Representative of the People's Democratic Party. Honorable Ahmed Dasuki is an economist and a businessman, served as a Commissioner of Finance in Sokoto State government from 2019 to 2023 under the Alhaji Aminu Tambawa administration, and is serving in the House of Rep representing Kebe Tambawa Federal Constituency. He is born to the family of His Eminence Alhaji Ibrahim Dasuki, the 18th Sultan of Sokoto, and he studied economics, has a bachelor degree in economics at the University of Abuja, graduated in 2004, and obtained certificates including business analysis at the Lagos Business School in 2008, and for leaders in development at the Harvard Kennedy School 2013. Honorable Abdulsamad Dasuki is an associate of the Nigeria Institute of Management, the Nigeria Institute of Marketing of Nigeria, and the Institute of Chartered Economists of Nigeria. So it's important to lay this background of who Honorable Abdulsamad Dasuki is. Otherwise, it will just appear to seem as if he is an opposition member and is just trying to say some things that are against the ruling government, but that's not the case. He is a qualified economist. He is a former commissioner of finance. He's a businessman, and he knows his stuff. So Honorable Dasuki stood at the House of Representatives and he made the following revelations.
Or breach of privilege has been committed, or referring the matter to the Committee of Ethics and Privileges. Still, if the matter is raised in the Committee of the Whole, the chairman shall leave the chair on the order to report progress. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I'm here today because my privilege has been breached as a member of this all-important House, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, we passed the tax laws on this floor, and Mr. Speaker, I took my time in the last 3 days to look at the gazetted past copy, the vote and proceedings of the House of Representatives, and also went an extra mile to look at the vote and proceedings of the Senate of what was harmonized. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, what I passed on this floor is not what is gazetted. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I have all the copies, but I'm coming under privilege because I was here, I gave my vote, and it was counted, and I'm seeing something completely different. So on that note, on this privilege, I will call on Mr. Speaker to graciously look at what was harmonized, what is in the gazetted copy, what was passed in the House and the Senate. You will find out what is before Nigerians, which is being sold to Nigerians at the Ministry of Information, which I personally went to buy the gazetted copies, are not what was passed. So there is no motion here, but Mr. Speaker, I'll be pleading that all the documents should be brought before the Committee of the Whole. The whole members should see what is in the gazetted, should see what they passed on the floor, so that we can make the relevant amendments. Mr. Speaker, this is a breach of the Constitution, this is a breach of our laws, and this should not be taken by this honorable House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I so move.
Thank you, Honorable Abdulsamad. Your observation is noted and action will be taken. I assure you that. Thank you.
So we see here Honorable Abdulsamad Dasuki stating that He was part of the process through which, the tax reform bills, when they were bills, were there's a committee on taxes and policy, tax policy, and all that. They made recommendations which were presented as bills to the National Assembly. Initially, they were quite controversial and there was a little bit back and forth. The Nigerian Governors Forum got involved and they reached a compromise, and after much debate, those bills were passed by. There was a version from the Senate, from another version from the House of Representatives. Then there's a harmonized version. The harmonized version is that the Senate and the House of Representatives will come together and they will reach an agreement on what the bill should be. It is the harmonized version that, that was assented to by National Assembly and sent to the presidency. Now the president has signed, and it now become, from a bill, it now become an act, Tax Reform Act, and there are four. Now these ones are now gazetted. The gazetted is the official government, the gazetted copy is the official government document showing the law, the Tax Reform Act, as an act of parliament that has been accepted by the president. This honorable member is alleging that he went through the copy that was the one that was approved by the House, the one that was approved by the Senate, the harmonized copy, and then with the gazetted copy. And then there is a difference between what was passed by the National Assembly and what was in the gazetted copy. And this one is something that he said should be looked into. And the Speaker of the House of Representatives said this issue will be looked into. And now there is this, let me look for it. Professor Chidi Ojirigho is a law professor. He quoted this video that was made by, the video was posted by Imran Mohammed on X platform. So Professor Chidi Ojirigho quoted it and made this comment. I had expected this to be revealed sooner. I will not say more, but Honorable Abdul Samad is very accurate. The story of what transpired will come out someday, but not from my mouth. So here, Prof. Chidi Ojirigho, the human rights lawyer and activist, is saying that it appears that some persons have known of this, and we are expecting that its information will come out, but now it has come out, and so that we'll hear more as time goes by. And then Daily Trust, in its front page, cited one of the alterations. So Daily Trust front page, Thursday, December 18th, it says tax laws altered section 64 subsection 1. In the bill that was passed by House of Representatives, Nigerian Tax Administrative Bill 2025, it stated that the tax authority shall have the power to investigate or cause an investigation to be conducted to ascertain any violation of any tax law, whether or not such violation has been reported to the relevant tax authority. So here, in the one that was passed by the House of Rep, it says that the tax authority shall have the power to investigate or cause an investigation to be conducted to ascertain any violation of any tax law. That was what was passed. Now, in the official gazette, it says that the tax authority shall have the power to investigate or cause an investigation to be conducted to ascertain any violation of any tax law, whether or not such violation has been reported to relevant tax authority. That is where the one pass in the House of Reps stopped. When the gazetted copy, they now added another portion and says, and shall also have the power to arrest any person suspected of committing such violations through relevant law enforcement agency. In the one that is passed by the House, the powers is to investigate or cause an investigation. While in the official gazette, they now added that shall have the power to arrest. So we're giving them powers to arrest, which is not something that was passed by the House of Representatives. This is an example that was cited by Daily Trust. Then there's Olufemi Awoyemi on X at Olufemi Awoyemi. X says, professional matter arising. At what stage did Taiwo Oyedele, which is the head of the Presidential Committee, Fiscal and Tax Committee. So saying at what stage did Taiwo Oyedele's Fiscal Committee plus the FIRS, Federal Inner Revenue Service, plus the Federal Ministry of, I think this one should be Federal Ministry of Finance. Okay, Federal Ministry of Finance and the National Assembly. At what stage did they know about the changes between the National Assembly approval of the tax bill, what was approved by the President, and what was eventually gazetted? This is a serious matter bordering on credibility of process, policy, and plans. Then there is a comprehensive statement that was made by a lawyer. Her name is Aisha Haman. Aisha Haman, she's a lawyer, human rights and governance, justice and accountability committed to a better Nigeria. Her handle is at Aisha Haman, AYSHA. The Haman is H in capital, okay, at A, at Aisha, capital A, the small letter YSHA, then capital letter HAMMAN. So she posted this. She studied the differences in the gazetted copy and the one passed by the National Assembly, and she made these comments on her social media, on her X handle. Here is what every Nigerian needs to know about the tax alterations, the legal implications, and what they mean for every taxpayer. Nigeria's 2025 tax laws were passed by the National Assembly. However, a month away from implementation, key provisions were discovered to be different from what the National Assembly approved. These are substantive changes that expanded government powers, removed oversight, and altered the obligations of taxpayers. In a democracy, what the National Assembly passes is what becomes law. When something different appears afterward, it raises serious legal and constitutional concerns. One of the most significant changes is the introduction of arrest powers that were not approved by the National Assembly. What lawmakers agreed to was the tax authorities could investigate suspected tax violations. Investigation simply means checking records, reviewing documents, and asking questions. What appeared in a gazetted law goes much further. It allows tax authorities to cause the arrest of any person they merely suspect of a tax violation using law enforcement agencies. So she went on to say, this matters because investigating a tax issue and arresting someone are not the same. One is about sorting out paperwork and resolving compliance issues. The other is about taking away a person's freedom. The altered law quietly allows that jump to happen before a court has even looked at the matter. That is a serious shift in power, and it was not part of what the National Assembly passed. Under the gazetted law, a tax issue can now lead to arrest and detention before a judge reviews the case. Another major change is that tax authorities can now seize and sell movable property without first obtaining a high court order. In Nigeria, courts exist to protect citizens from abuse and to ensure that property is not taken arbitrarily. Property rights require judicial oversight. By removing the need for court approval, the new law removes neutral control. When this is combined with the new arrest powers, it means a taxpayer can be arrested on suspicion and lose property without the judge approving either action. It also goes on to state, this by Aisha Haman, a lawyer. Another troubling alteration is the removal of oversight by the National Assembly. In the version passed by the National Assembly, the tax authority was required to submit quarterly and annual reports to the National Assembly and to appear before the National Assembly when summoned. These provisions were removed in the gazetted law. This means the National Assembly lost its ability to monitor a powerful agency, while the agency gained authority without accountability. Oversight is a core democratic safeguard. Removing it weakens checks and balances. It also goes on to say the alterations also quietly widen the tax net. Reporting requirements were changed from annual to quarterly, income thresholds were lowered, and the scope of who falls under federal tax administration was expanded. The effect is that more Nigerians and more businesses are pulled into the tax system, reporting becomes more frequent, and compliance burdens increase, especially for small businesses. Major policy shifts like this should be debated openly and transparently, not inserted quietly after passage. Another significant change is that the taxes in the oil and gas sector must now be calculated and paid in US dollars. Nigeria is already facing serious foreign exchange pressure. Dollar-denominated taxes increase costs, create barriers, and place additional strain on businesses operating locally. This is not a minor technical adjustment, it's a substantive policy change with real economic consequences. Then the last part of what she said, access to justice has also been made more difficult. To challenge a tax decision, taxpayers are now required to deposit 20% of the disputed amount before they can go to court. For many Nigerians, this makes it impossible to challenge wrongful tax assessments. When access to justice depends on how much money someone has, rights become theoretical. A right that cannot be exercised is not a real right. And so this lawyer made a number of reference to the difference between the gazetted copy and the one that was passed by the National Assembly. As I've read from Daily Trust, we saw that in the one passed by National Assembly, there was a section that talks about investigation. The gazetted copy went ahead to say that arrests gave the tax authority the power to arrest. So the question now is that what happened here? Going by what Professor Chidi Odikalo said, seems that some persons have known about this and it has been on the quiet. Then we have Honorable Abdulsamad Dasuki coming out to talk about this, and he took his time. He went to get the official gazetted copy. He checked the Senate copy and that passed by the House of Representatives, and he made it known at the floor of the House. So what could have happened here? What happened here? Now, I listened to an interview. The interview was granted on Trust News, Trust Television. And Trust Television, they interviewed a journalist, a former House of Representative member. So he was asked, the former House of Representative member from...
Still on the developments in the House of Representatives, joining us via Zoom is Honorable Rima.
So the former House of Representative member is Honorable Rima Shawulu, So he was asked about this, and he said that this former House of Rep member said that this is not the first time this is happening, that it has happened before, where the something that was passed by National Assembly, there will be changes when it gets to the presidency, you know, and that should not be the case. That when during the time of President Buhari, that there were times where when there were alterations that were brought to the attention of the president, that those bills were sent back to the National Assembly so that they will look at it again. You know, it is not the proper thing. That they even say this House of Rep member, the former House of Rep member said that there was a time during the constitutional review in the House, there was a conversation whether or not if the National Assembly, in the floor of the National Assembly, if they have passed a bill, you know, if the clerks, there are clerks, the administrators of the National Assembly, clerks, National Assembly clerks, they are the ones to put, put everything in proper documentation before sending it to the presidency for assent. Now, at the point of those, when it has left the National Assembly floor, when it goes to those clerks, sometimes they can see maybe some grammatical errors or some mistakes, and they may want to correct it. So at the constitutional review they had, the question came up: can the clerk of the House of the National Assembly, can they make such corrections without going back to the House or the National Assembly to seek the approval? And it was said that it's not supposed to be. That if there are mistakes that were made, corrections that need to be made, if corrections were made, the copies ought to be sent back to the National Assembly for approval before it's sent to the president. Because that if the clerks in the National Assembly, if they make alterations, then it has changed what was passed. And then there will now be a legal jeopardy. I think it can be questioned whether what was gazetted, what was signed by the president is what was actually passed by the House. So from that experience now, so it can be noted that this thing has happened before. He said when the Niger Delta Development Commission, when the bill was passed, that there was a time that the act of the Niger Delta Development Commission, that there were two versions. There are two different versions, and that could have happened in this process. So the point is that when the bill has been passed by the National Assembly, the administrators, the civil servants, the clerks and the National Assembly, they could make some alterations if they see some grammatical errors and all that. Then it goes to the presidency. At the presidency, usually when bills when they are approved by National Assembly, presidency has to review. So likely, since there's a committee on taxes and fiscal policy, likely the committee would review the bill that has been passed and now say, okay, this bill is okay. Then they now advise the president to give his assent. Or it could be the Ministry of Finance, or there are those in the presidency that will review whatever is coming from the National Assembly, then give it to the president to sign. Then after these things is signed, then there's an official gazette. The official gazette is the official document that shows, okay, this is the law, and it's published and it should be accessible to all Nigerians so that they can get copies and read it and know what the law says. So at each of these points, there could be issue of alteration. Even before it leaves the National Assembly, there can be alteration. When it gets to the presidency, before the president signs it, there can be alteration. After the president has signed it, there can also be alteration. But going by what the former House of Representatives saying, that such should not be the case. And going by the example that was in time of President Buhari, that if they notice any alterations, then it should be sent back to the National Assembly. So in this case now, having seen, as revealed by Honorable Abdulsamad Dasuki, that there are changes between what was passed at the National Assembly and what's in the official gazette, the solution now is that the bill, the act, has to be suspended. The implementation of the act is supposed to start on January 1st, 2026. So leaving it like this and allowing it exposes the act to legal redress or legal jeopardy, as people can take the issue to court and question the legality of the act. So the presidency ought to send it back to the National Assembly. So the National Assembly will look at it again and see if they can approve the additional sections that were added to the official gazette, or if they will remove it